week, I thought, man, okay, if something like that, I'm just thinking about it now, okay, I would wait till as close to Sunday as possible before making that announcement, just because that's less time for them to mobilize, demonstrations and all these other things that may happen. But I'm just going to put it out there on Monday. Now there's all week for people to second guess and build up the pressure, and it'll be interesting to see now if they stand by that all week, or if that pressure makes them collapse and decide not to play him this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, from the reports coming out of Minneapolis, he is set to play.
Yeah.
Anybody can change their mind. You're right. I mean, if there's a continued groundswell, we've seen it in the past.
Like you said.
We just saw it. Yeah, we just saw it with Ray Rice, and that he went from 2-game suspension to indefinite. Basically because of the public outrage. So you never want to discount that outrage. I don't see it happening. This came directly from the Vikings ownership. It had nothing to do with the head coach, Mike Zimmer, or the general manager, Rick Spielman. So, I think he'll be back on Sunday. But as you said, we'll have to see.
Fantasy owners will be happy about that. So many bad stories, and so much has happened. And hopefully we don't have to recap a week like this for quite some time. I mean, we'll do it if we have to, but it covers up a lot of the good stories on the field this weekend and through the first early part of the season. And I'll start right here in Cleveland, Brian Hoyer, and the story of the hometown kid who got the chance after being a backup and getting cut. He gets his team, he gets them some victories when all is lost, and then he goes down, and then he comes back, and we did the whole dance with the first-round draft pick, and this is never going to end good for a guy like Brian Hoyer. And he's before the season, he's rated in the backup quarterbacks. I mean, he's rated the 32nd best backup quarterback in the NFL. I mean, everything possible hammered against him, and here he sits now. He wins a game against the Saints at home when no Browns team in the last 15 years comes back. I mean, they find ways to give that away. I mean, they're some way, and they didn't. And I know that it's one win in a 16-game season, but that's a hell of a good feel-good story to start with right there, with that Browns victory and the quarterback who led it. And I mentioned that after they monkeyed around with Manziel for a couple of snaps, that woke up, you could say it pissed him off, whatever, that woke up Brian Hoyer. He went 15 of 19 with 2 TD drives after those couple of snaps with Manziel. Talk to me about that and the Browns victory.
Well, it was huge, and against a great opponent. I picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl this year, so they didn't beat just anybody. New Orleans doesn't generally play well on the road, and that's the kind of hiccup that they have to correct. But any way you look at it, it was a tremendous win. The Browns haven't won a home opener in years, so. That aspect, and you keep pointing out that Brian Hoyer keeps coming back and keeps keeps playing better than the alternatives. Whether it's Johnny Manziel, and I said the same thing. I don't understand teams that do that put in a change of pace quarterback for a play or two. I always think it ruins sort of the flow of the offense. I never liked it anywhere, not just whether it was the most, notorious of that is Tim Tebow with the Jets, and it kind of ruined Mark Sanchez's career with the Jets.
They kept mentioning
I don't like it,
yesterday,
and the fact
TV.
that he rebounded from it, I think speaks a lot of him. And he's what he is. He's not gonna remind you of the big strapping, Joe Flacco, 6'6" guy is going to throw the ball 70 yards down the field. He doesn't have that kind of physical ability, but he just grinds and grinds and grinds, and he's better than you think he is. And it's some of those things that, analytics people hate, when you talk about intangibles. There's something to it. There's leadership. There's the ability, maybe all the potholes he's had in his career has just made him tougher, and the fact that when he gets knocked down, he gets back up, and it's all a part of it. And anytime you see what happened yesterday, you have to feel good for somebody like Brian Hoyer.
Absolutely. You and I have talked about and you real quick, you brought up that change of pace. The mind-boggling thing to me, the fact that they did it in general, but then you didn't do anything with it. Like, it's not like you brought Manziel in and you ran a couple of designed quarterback rollout runs or like something different. You brought him in and handed the ball off twice, and then I don't know if he checked off at the line or what that was on the third one where he rolled out and the fullback dropped the one pass. But you just brought in a different quarterback to run regular plays, I guess, and that was kind of the part that maybe that was like a very vanilla version of the read option, but it wasn't to me. It was just, I guess you just maybe, and I see Vashon, maybe you were just hoping that the defense went bananas, but considering that they watched Johnny Manziel play in the NFL in the preseason, I don't think that really scared the defense much. So it just didn't seem like a good tactical use of him if you were going to even try to do that.
No, you're being too nice. It was stupid.
It was stupid. You're right. If you're bringing in somebody for a change of pace, you're right. Let's change the pace. Yes.
Let's do something different. Let's not run the offense, the same offense you're running.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
It was just, there's got to be the thought process, and you see it going on in Jacksonville. You see it going on everywhere. You see it going on in Minnesota. Yesterday when Matt Castle played so bad. The quarterbacks who have guys, waiting in the wings. The coaches say, oh, no, we're not thinking about it, but they're thinking about it. There's no question they're thinking about it. And the hope probably was, hey, maybe Johnny will go out there and just light it up and get one first down, 2 first downs, 3 first, and all of a sudden we never have to bench him for the next 10 years.
That's what Hoyer's doing instead. He's like, you know what? I'm never letting this job go. Damn it.
Yeah, and people. I was at Jacksonville and Philadelphia in week 1, and I'm asking Gus Bradley after the game about Blake Bortles, and he's looking at me like I got 2 heads. Like, why would I ask that question? Because Chad Henne's your quarterback. That's why. The coaches, and you understand, on the other hand, you understand why coaches do it. They don't want to, go out in public and diss their quarterback, no matter who it is. But it's about actions more than anything else, and we've talked about it constantly here. At some point, the Cleveland Browns expect Johnny Manziel to be their starting quarterback. It doesn't mean Brian Hoyer expects it, but the Cleveland Browns expect it. And the hope is he develops into, as I said, the guy who never leaves for the next 10 years. But he's got a guy in front of him right now that doesn't plan on giving up the job.
And, like I was joking there, I said Hoyer's the one that's not giving it up. But that change of pace that you said, you can say it was stupid, and I most definitely agree with that. When I'm watching it, I'm going, whatever. But it did give you that spark you were looking for, just not the way you were looking for it, because Hoyer came. And I was even, I was talking as I was watching the game, I was texting to some people, and I was even like, wow, now, not only did I get pulled out, but you monkeyed around on 1st and 2nd down, then send me back in there on 3rd and 16, and let's make it even harder here. But then, boom, got the 3rd down conversion on a great pass there, and then next thing you know, we're moving, we're rolling. 15 of 19, 2 touchdowns later, and the Browns pull off that win. And so, say what you want about it being a dumb move, but maybe that kicked him into gear where he said, man, because he was not sharp. He was off and on throughout the game. He had some good passes and some very bad passes, and he was kind of pedestrian up until that point. But bam, it did accomplish what you wanted it to, just maybe not the way you did if you're the Browns coaches,
Yeah, Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It might have accomplished, it might have, helped the team on that particular day. That wasn't what they were setting out to accomplish, is my only point.
No, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so, if it lit a fire under Brian Hoyer and got him playing better, yeah, it helped. It certainly helped the team, but that wasn't, the plan.
And
the plan was for Johnny Manziel to succeed, whether it was in 3 plays, 10 plays, 20 plays, whatever. But it worked out in the end, and you give credit where credit's due, and Mike Pettin gets his first win as an NFL head coach, and there's no questions about who starts next week now, and you move on and you try to build on it.
And you know what? I was telling people, you mentioned that about Pettin. I said before the game, all we talk about is those stats of doom. Browns have gone 1-14, and Browns haven't won in a decade on this home opener, and all of these opening day stats of doom. I said, man, for right now, you can say Mike Pettin has never lost a home opener as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. You got to start somewhere with that.
Best winning percentage ever.
That's it. You got to start somewhere with that. And Brian Hoyer, hey, say what you want. This is why I say it's such an intriguing story that we get to watch. We'll see if the coach turns back into a pumpkin before this season's over. But right now, 4-1 as the starter for his hometown team, and 2 final 2-minute game-winning drives in that small sample size. So it's definitely, you can see why it's a story. And if the Manziel narrative wasn't there, it's one of the more talked about ones in the early part of the season, I believe, because that is one of those kind of feel-good narratives that people can get behind, and that they can start to tell the story in the national media. But I think Manziel kind of blurs that, because I think some of the media gets mad at it because they're like, damn it, why don't this guy just get out of the way already? You're going to lose the job eventually. Why don't you just go ahead and give it up now, and let us get started? I told you, I don't know if you saw, John, watching the NFL Network recaps this morning, but that Browns game that we watched, it was a pretty exciting game, back and forth. Both teams played well. Manziel's handoff was where they started highlights, and that was the lead story. It was, let's take you to Cleveland.
I don't understand. I don't understand it back to Texas A&M. For whatever reason, I mean, people are engrossed by the kid, and
yeah, they are. He was on the front page of the paper for Sunday.
A&M, and
I
get that part, but there are a lot of good college players that don't have the same, Q rating, whatever you want to call it.
You don't live here,
that
John.
Johnny Manziel has.
Sunday morning in our local Plain Dealer, TJ Lane is a very famous case for the school shooting a couple of years ago. He escaped from prison the other day. On the Sunday morning paper, the Johnny Manziel cover photo and story for the backup quarterback was on the front page of the Plain Dealer, took up 3/4 of the front page, blew away the next biggest story, which was about that kid's prison escape for a few hours a couple of days before. And then, on top of that, there was an entire 5-page pull-out section of the paper entitled Manziel Mania, helping sell the upcoming book about Johnny Manziel's first training camp in the NFL and his brief college career. And I'm like, wow, for the guy who is the backup quarterback, I have never seen that before on a game day.
Yeah, I wish I could add something. I don't understand it either. Because obviously, if you look at Blake Bortles, number 3 overall pick, you won't see that kind of. People are there. People are questioning. When is he going to take over? Same thing in Minnesota with Teddy Bridgewater. People say every time. Matt Castle was terrible yesterday, and that's the first question. When are you going to go to Teddy? So that kind of thing happens in every NFL city, no matter what. If you have a young quarterback that is the heir apparent, all that kind of happens. But the extra stuff that you get with Johnny Manziel, Yeah, he's more, and that's part of the problem. That's always been part of the problem with him, because he loves that lifestyle, and the fact that he's more of an entertainment star than you as a